Everybody, how we doing today? The video I'm doing today is on the Aries brand Aerotread running boards, step rails, however you want to call them. These guys here, that's the part number for the bracket kit. I guess what I'll talk about first is the packaging. Obviously everybody's opened. Everything's open. When I put anything together, whether it be furniture, something automotive related, whatever it may be, I always take everything out, unpackage it, lay it out, similar to what I did here. That's the stuff left over that I'm not using for this installation. Apparently I don't need it. So basically my bracket kit came in this box here. Brackets, bolts, hardware, everything came in this box with this bubble wrap. The wrap seemed pretty good, had some thin foam, styrofoam, kind of cushioning it. You can see, it's just a bracketry, so it's not like a big deal. It didn't really get banged up that I saw. The paint wasn't all scratched, whatever. And then the second package you receive, or first package, whatever, however order, the running boards only come in this long box here, and that's all that was used for packaging. So plastic on each step rail, and then some foam, which is fine. They don't seem banged up. So the packaging seemed okay. They shipped okay. I actually got them faster than expected. They're pretty expensive step rails, this brand. I'm a little disappointed in them, but we'll get to that. So basically it comes with this installation manual here. It tells you what you should have, your torque specs. That's what you should have. And then, as you flip around, like typical instructions, you can read through. Got a couple pages. So I installed them on a 2016 Nissan Rogue for my grandparents. They're in their 90s, and they wanted something to help assist them get into their vehicle. It is a low riding vehicle anyways, but they're as you can imagine, they do have a little bit of hard time hopping in. So first things first, since I'm standing right here by the instructions, I wish that these instructions were a little bit more detailed, and I think that's kind of generic with anything that you buy or install. It seems like there's some fine details that are left out. They do give you the option of some installation tips. I believe it said somewhere that you could go to the website and see some installation tips, or maybe I saw that on their website. But anyways, if you buy these, check that out, read them. Maybe check out the tips. I didn't check the tips out. I'm an auto mechanic, so I figured I could make everything work. I'm going to touch on a few points. This is going to be Nissan Rogue specific, I guess. Maybe you would even go for the Pathfinder. Now, there's a year range where the installation is different on the Nissan Rogue. Apparently, the older Rogues, so looking at these instructions, are a little bit easier because you use different mounting holes. So my first step kind of confused me of finding the mounting holes. So I did some looking online to try to figure that out. I've never installed these before. I'm sure somebody that installs them is, much more efficient at it. I think the install time said like an hour. It definitely took me over an hour trying to figure everything out, looking online. And the reason I purchased this kit for my grandparents was the fact that it said in the instructions online that there was no drilling required. And I actually reread the instructions, because the first thing I noticed was right here: tools required, drill bit 3/8, a 13, a 16, 18, 13 wrench, and a utility knife. So I didn't want to have to drill. I didn't want to have to do anything super custom, and that's why I bought it. It says no drill, blah 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 on the website. So that was a little bit misleading. That's one thing I'm disappointed in. I'll tell you right now, for this install and the hardware that came with this kit, you do not need a 16 millimeter. You do not need an 18 millimeter. You do need a 10 millimeter, a 14 millimeter, and a 19 millimeter. So you do need the drill bit. The screwdriver was helpful but not necessary. You definitely need a knife for this install, and a torque wrench. I didn't use one, but definitely suggest using it. So we'll get right into the install portion. So here they are on the car. So yes, I have already installed them. Some people that may watch this or may not watch this, you know, whatever, they may be a little upset that I didn't show the process, because I feel like that may have been helpful for people. I know I was a little confused on some of the steps. My grandparents wanted the, I think this is a polished stainless steel, they call it. There is some scuffing I see right here. All that scuffing, I didn't notice that before, but it's going to serve its purpose. Here's what they look like. They're definitely solid. They look like they're very well made. The bracketry looks like it's very well made. I'll show you the driver's side. They line up just a touch different from passenger to driver's side, and that's probably just how I installed them. On this side here, it's almost touching this. It's kind of right on that little, I guess, mud flap, if you will, the splash shield that comes down. I probably could have loosened these up and banged it back forward, because underneath here, those bolts right here, they just slide through these channels and you can adjust it back and forth. I'm not concerned about it. I left it just like that. So let me start with the positives. Let me show you a couple things I do like. So first and foremost, I got a trusty flashlight here, might help. So this is a picture of one of the brackets. As you can see, the thickness of that bracket, it's very strong. That's never going to give. The first thing that'll give is the unibody that you connected to, and the rocker panel pinch weld that I had to connect to. And I don't even think the rocker panel will give. I think the first thing that would pull out, if it would, but the way these are designed and the way the pressure will be on them, this back portion is going to be pushing up anyways. The crucial part is where I attach to the rocker panel, and I'll show you that underneath. I'm not real thrilled that I had to attach it that way. The rear one is mounted to a toe point. You install a bracket and a bolt. I'll be able to show you better underneath, but there's another picture of the bracket, the thickness. Again, that's quality, guys. It feels solid. I'm not sure where these are made. I don't know if they're China made or USA made. If that's important to you, which it wasn't for me, that you can look that up. I almost feel like they were USA made, but again, I'm not 100% certain. So again, I like that they seem rugged, they're solid, the quality seems there. I'm going to point out another thing. You might be able to see it here. So I'm going to point with my finger. So right here, it's hard to tell in a video, but this is rubber. It runs all the way down. Okay, it's a big rubber flap. It runs the whole length of the vehicle. And I'll tell you, the first thing that I thought was fantastic about that is you'll be able to spray it off and you can wash everything out of there. Nothing can get by and underneath. Not that it's going to collect anywhere and get caught anywhere, but if it did, it'd be kind of hard to clean out. So if you sprayed it off with a hose, it can wash out really easy in here. I thought that was cool. It's a nice finishing piece. It makes it look cool. So if there was a gap, which there is in the back, if it was uneven from, you know, down in the back to the front, that kind of finishes off and makes it look clean. So I think that's fantastic. Both sides have that. And so here's the rubber right here. So it finishes off, makes it kind of it's not I wouldn't say a tight seal, but I don't even think rain will get through there. You know what I'm saying? Not like it's a big deal, but it's nice. I like it. So let's see. So this is a bracket in the back. Okay. So these bolts right here, one was a 19, the other one was a 17. these bolts here, this is the channel I was saying it slid down, so you can adjust it. These bolts came on the step bars, the running boards, if you will, so they were already installed. You just had to loosen them and slide them down to where you needed them. These holes are slotted for ease of installation. Definitely helped, but both sides, there was two that wouldn't line up, so I had to loosen the brackets and get them to slide into the holes. I even tapped on it a little bit with the screwdriver. So as far as quality and them being in there, I'm definitely happy with them. I haven't stepped on them yet, but I can tell already that there shouldn't be any give. They don't stick out a lot from the car, and that's what they kind of wanted, a sleek look. They didn't want the step bars, if you guys know what I'm talking about. Usually you see them on pickup trucks. They indicated they've had them and they were slippery, so they wanted a different style. So real quick, I'm throwing out a lot of information. Hopefully this is helpful, but I'm going to get into the things that I dislike, and it would make me not want to buy this kit again. I would definitely do more research to get a kit that didn't involve so much. This wasn't a lot, but drilling and modifications. So the first thing right here, so where that bolt comes through, you guys can obviously see that. I'm trying to hold the flashlight and the cell phone. But that bolt that comes through there, that's spray paint. I painted it. So there's two things I don't like about what I had to do. This hole and this hole here on this vehicle, those aren't pre-made. I had to line those up, center punch it, and drill a 3/8 hole through there. First thing is I didn't want to drill the rocker panel pinch weld. It's not a huge deal. I did it. It's done. It'll hold. I just didn't want to have to do it. It takes longer. So that's the first thing I didn't like I had to do. So I had to do that on both sides. The second thing that I didn't like that I had to do is this rocker panel has a plastic cover on it right here. And you have to trim that. You can actually see some of the scoring from me getting in there. Yeah, luckily you can't see any of that, but I had to trim that rocker panel because the flap is right here, and I had to cut it wide enough for this bracket. This one's actually installed wrong, but I'm going to leave it because I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I'll show you on the other side how it's supposed to be. It's actually supposed to be like this one here. I didn't realize I did that till after, and I don't think it's going to make a difference. But anyways, it's on the, so this is on the outside of the pinch weld. This one's on the inside, if somebody didn't notice that right away. So that's the second thing that I didn't like about it. Having to trim that plastic rocker cover, if you will. It wasn't hard to do it. I just did it with a razor blade. You could even do it with a utility knife. I don't have a utility knife here at the shop, so I use a razor blade and a pair of vice grips. It was okay. It didn't take a while to trim it. I just didn't want to trim it. The second thing I don't like is where I drilled. I've seen some other kits online where they send like a rubber insulation or a foam insulation to try to seal it up. But where I drilled in here, you score up the metal. And in New England where I live, that's going to rust, and I didn't like it. So I tried to blow some paint on it in hopes that it was going to cover, and salt brine that we use up here is not going to get in there and rust that rocker panel out. So I'm not a huge fan of having to drill that and score up the sheet metal. So there's just not a coating where I drilled the hole through. I could have painted it before I stuck the bolt through, but there's always a chance that that bolt's going to score it anyways on the way in. So I feel like if there was a foam or rubber insert in here on both sides, it would have helped seal and keep the stuff out. So I'm thinking of other things that I didn't like in this install. I'm going to touch real quick on this mounting bracket. This is the only mounting bracket where it gets a little funky. So it comes with a long, I wouldn't say long, it's probably an inch long nut that you have to insert up inside the unibody with a little tail on it to fish it in. Didn't really want to fit too well in here. I actually, on this side, I had to oblong that a little bit, and I fished it down this way. The other side I didn't do that, but this worked for this one. You also need a 10 millimeter socket, which they don't tell you about because the bolt they send is a 10 millimeter. And the washers that they send are too small. When you stick them through right here where it's slotted, the washer is so small it falls through that slot. So At the shop here, we have fender washers. I grabbed 2. These 2 did not come with the kit. I used 2 because I didn't want it to have a chance to dent and suck into that slot. And I wanted to make sure the weight was spread out evenly if that was to be, ever have a load on it. Sorry, I'm so shaky. Arm got tired. So that was another thing. The washers weren't big enough. That bolt kind of just fell through, which was kind of shitty. I would hate to see anybody try to do this. I know it says on their website that you don't need a lift to do this. I would hate to see somebody try to do this without a lift. I would definitely have somebody install it professionally because it was super helpful. I would not have wanted to drill holes on my back through this rocker panel because you have to, there's no like measurement. They don't give you a measurement. Here, drill here. What I did was installed this bracket, stood out there, looked in. I lined these up to where I thought they looked straight by my eyeball. I lifted these up, marked the rocker panel like they said, but you could be, you could be over here with it. You could be over here with it. There's no way to tell if you're straight without standing back and putting an eyeball on it. So that I'm not a huge fan of. It would have been nice to have more of a concrete way to line those up and make sure they're straight. I didn't want them crooked. I think there's some give either way if they are a little crooked, with the way these are adjusted, but I wanted them straight so they looked good. I think they're pretty straight by just using my eyeball. I probably could have come up with a way to measure them and be more precise, but I didn't want to have to do that. I'm trying to hurry and get done. So that I wasn't a huge fan of. Drilling wasn't cool. This bolt sucked. Luckily, I work at a shop, so we have a nut and bolt collection. That's not a huge deal. While I'm talking about nuts and bolts, right here, the bolt that I was trying to suck this bracket down, I was trying to suck the 2 together, and the thread stripped out on the bolt they send. Now, I know the first thing everybody's thinking is, well, you over torqued it, and that's not what happened. The bolt and the bracket weren't even tight to each other. There was still a gap, and I was trying to pull the 2 together. Yes, this bolt was loose. I didn't put these on until everything was tight. There was nothing that should have caused those threads to strip out. The bolt was still loose. This bracket wasn't even touching yet, and the threads gave out. I think it's simply just because the hardware they sent is so cheap, China made, that the threads gave out. I've run into that before with cheap bolts. So luckily, again, I work at a shop. We have a nut and bolt collection. I went and got some good bolts, some good nuts, and I used my own nuts and bolts. So for somebody doing that in their driveway, they're probably not going to have a collection. Those are 8mm bolts. So I had to use my own hardware. All the other hardware used was from the kit, except for the ones that mount to these brackets. That one there, and that one there. The ones from the shop. And then there's 2 over here that I used. I didn't even try them. I just put in the ones that I had here at the shop because I didn't want to have to take them back out. So the old bolts, or the new bolts that came with the kit, stripped out. The threads gave out. Kind of sucks, but disappointment. So another thing that was kind of shitty, I don't like that these brackets on this side are mounted differently. Again, nobody's going to see it. It's not a big deal, but it irritates me that they're not the same side to side. So this one faces, so what I'm talking about is this face is on this side, and when you go over here, this face is on the other side. And I think they do that just because it's easier to manufacture them. They're all the same side to side, except for the rear 2. The other thing that sucks on the Nissan Rogue is you use this factory bolt. You just unthread that one, and it lines up there. So right here it's touching. I didn't notch this because it seems to mount flush. But over here, what I had to do with a carbide bit and my die grinder is I notched that bracket because that bolt would not go back in on this side. It was too close. So that kind of sucks to do, and your average do-it-yourself person in their driveway are probably not going to have those tools. They're probably just going to leave that bolt out. It's going to be okay probably with it out, but I don't want to leave things out to sacrifice for an install of something else. So I marked it, notched it. I didn't have to notch a lot, but it was still something that I shouldn't have had to do. They could have done something different on their manufacturing. They could have just made this a little thinner or made that notch and marked, which ones to use for the front of the vehicle. And the pictures don't do it this justice. Like, they're trying to show you which two holes you've got to mount into, and you just can't tell. It's just a picture of the guy's hand and a bolt. So I basically put it up to where I thought it looked good, and it was like halfway to be supportive, and I put it in the middle of the three. There's 1, 2, 3 holes here, and I put it in the middle one. I thought that was a good spot to carry the load, and it's pretty much even. So I feel like that was it. Again, that wasn't very descriptive in the installation instructions. So this is this. I didn't have any trouble with this. The only thing that I would say is you have to fish a bracket. So these two are connected inside. So this side's got a bolt on it. Bolt on it, and this side has a threaded insert on it. It's a little too long up in here in the frame where you insert it. The bracket, you can't see it. Obviously, it's in the frame or in the body. But it's too long, and where it bevels here in the frame, I'm pretty sure it's pushing on it. I almost trimmed it, but I didn't because it feels solid. And it does that on both sides, so I feel like they could have shortened that a little bit better and spent a little more time on it. For the money, I mean, these are not cheap. This is a $400 kit for these. So this side went okay. It's all lined up. I was very delicate with this hardware, tightening it up. And that was pretty much it, guys. Besides the trimming and the mounting, see, this one's mounted the right way, this bracket. It's mounted, that's where it's supposed to be. Same thing with this one. The middle one on this side, it's never gonna cause a problem, there's no way. You know, the rocker panel, like I said, is the biggest thing I didn't want to have to drill, and I drilled a hole through. There's enough sheet metal there. You'd have to put a lot of pressure there to damage that. If it ever tore out, I guess I'll weld the bracket in there. But I highly doubt it that's going to come out of there. It's going to take a lot of weight to break that rocker panel pinch weld that I drilled through. So I used 2 drill bits, one thinner drill bit, I'm not even sure the size, to pre-drill it, and then I ran a 3/8 through. I broke my first 3/8 bit. Oh, that's another thing I didn't like, is you can't get your drill level. You have to drill at an angle. It doesn't fit because it hits here. Same thing on this side, it hits over here. And then I tried drilling from this side, and you end up hitting the rocker cover, scoring that up. That's why this side's so scored up over here. It looks like I butchered it. That's from my drill and a screwdriver. You could have pulled the rocker covers off and tried to been cleaner about it, but it doesn't say you have to do that in the instructions. So again, guys, would I install this kit again? No, I'd probably seek another installation. Oh, there's the tail of that thing you got to fish through with the nut insert on it to connect to this little 6mm bolt. I mean, that's not going to hold much anyways. First of all, the unibody's pretty thin, and that bolt's is just a 6mm, so whatever. And then you've got 8mm bolts out here. Kind of, again, the pressure is going to be up here, so that's just kind of to hold it in place. So it shouldn't be that big a deal. But would I buy these again? No, I wouldn't for the money. I would probably, there's some Romex ones out there that seem pretty nice, pretty straightforward. I think I would have an easier install if this was like a 2008 to 2013. Looks like there was no drilling for that year. But these are supposed to be no-slip platform, non-slip, whatever it says, and that's what they wanted. So yeah, guys, hopefully that was helpful. Peace out.